evening, ladies and gentlemen, or lady and gentlemen. Welcome to the Plan Commission meeting of the City of Hudson for Thursday, August 22nd. I'd like to call the meeting to order. First item on the agenda is consideration of the minutes of the 8/8/13 meeting. Any changes, additions?
I move to approve.
Second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item is a draft regulations for microbrewery, winery, distillery operations in commercial and industrial districts. Mr. Darnold?
Well, and at our meeting before last, we discussed this. One is the possibility of allowing breweries, distilleries, wineries in the commercial areas, and the concern at least expressed in the downtown areas, limiting the size of these types of facilities so that they can fit within the context of the downtown area. Currently, the limitation in downtown would be the production area of 3,000 square feet. It could have a tasting room up to a maximum of 4,000 square foot. If they're associated with a restaurant, then they would not be subject to that 4,000 square foot area. But as it's written now, anything in downtown would have to be ancillary to a restaurant or a food service. And the purpose of that is trying to get, not allowing the larger production facilities downtown because there's a limited amount of area that's allowed, and you're starting to skirt where these types of facilities would then be a primary use and more of an industrial use than an ancillary use to food service. So I guess at this point, I think that we do have some representation. May want to make comments. Certainly want to try to keep moving this draft along. So I guess your choice tonight, where we continue working on it, where we send it to the city attorney so we could put it in final form. I haven't sent it to her yet. But she may want, but there may be comments coming tonight. So please reintroduce yourself and what
Sure.
you're.
Hi everybody, my name is Pat Johnson. I live at 2418 96th Avenue North in Brooklyn Park, Minnesota. I just wanted to come and kind of reintroduce myself. I know we had talked about this at length at the last meeting I attended. And again, I love the rules as they're written here. I really don't see any difficulty with our business model. But I know that there were a number of questions last time, and I'm sure there may be some follow-ups, so I'd be glad to address any questions anybody might have.
And, you have the distillery, so just make sure the Plan Commission. I don't know if Mayor Burchill was here last time, so.
Yep, we'd be looking at a new distillery here in town. It would be limited to a production facility as well as a tasting room. It would not be ancillary to a restaurant. We would have no food service on site. We would like to create relationships with additional restaurants here in town to have them serve food on site or to create some sort of a partnership in order to kind of build up the local business a little bit from that extent. We'll also be doing a number of different events with nonprofits and working with the community as much as possible. But by and large, our primary mission would be to create spirits for production and for shipment. So we would have pallets going out for distribution within liquor stores and restaurants throughout, hopefully nationwide within the next couple of years. But the tasting room would be limited to anywhere between 50 and 75 seats. We would have and the only spirits that we would be serving would be ones that we actually produce ourselves. So that's kind of the business model. I'm sorry.
Would you were here last time, if I recall, with Mr. Murphy.
Yes.
Would you, and that's neither here nor there, I guess, is it your intent to partner on a land ownership and or adjacentness to a certain property to try to accomplish some of the things you're doing? In other words, food, some other things. I mean, maybe you can't say you can't say things here, but I guess I'm curious how you are going to achieve what you say you want to. We, of course, nixed bringing food in and anything
Sure,
like
absolutely.
that. And of course, that raises a question: how are you going to do it?
Well, I mean, honestly, I'll walk up and down the street and talk to business owners. I mean, it's really, I don't want to have anything that's too set in stone. It's going to be, Thursday night, we'll talk to one of the local restaurants and see if they want to do it, and if they want to be a part of it, that's great. If not, there's no obligation for anybody. Our intent is to serve spirits and to produce spirits. And if, in order to give our guests a better experience, that means to have some sort of food on site or to have some sort of a relationship with a restaurant that could come in, say, one night a week, and we'd have a couple of different alternating ones. It would not be anything where there would be no high-level contracts. It would be, build a Schaefer dish full of food, and we'll call it finger food, and I'll buy it from you for $50.
So really your intent then is to be a production facility. The tasting room is there, but that's actually secondary.
The tasting room, just in terms of finance, would be roughly, in the first year, we would expect it to be roughly about 1/3 of our overall income. So it would be a significant portion of our income, but it would not be what our primary goal would be. That's not to say the tasting room serves a number of purposes within the business model. First and foremost is that it gives us a chance to interact with our guests and our purchasers. The second one is that it gives us an excellent marketing opportunity to create a relationship with these people so that when they go out to liquor stores and bars down the road, we have name recognition and they're able to purchase it. We want to have the tasting room as a significant part of the business, but the business would not be entirely dependent on that, which is why we'd be limiting our hours. We wouldn't be trying to compete with any bars or anything like that. That's not our intent. Our intent would be to be open 3 days a week, to have offers with local restaurants and do a couple of things on a smaller scale, but really it's a chance for people to come in, take a tour of the facility, sit down, have a drink, taste some of the different things that we're making in our tasting experience, maybe order a cocktail, and then they would depart. We're expecting a turnover roughly between 30 to 45 minutes per guest.
Let me rephrase my question then. We show on the things here of a production area of 3,000 square feet. You think you can accomplish your goal within that square foot parameter?
Absolutely. In fact, what we're looking at right now in terms of the lease is a 4,000 square foot facility in total. So that's the entire size of the facility. You can squeeze pallets in and out through that. We can make that happen. And in fact, based on research, that actually looks to be scalable for a number of years at the same level. If we were to grow to a point where that was not enough space, the tasting room would remain in the downtown area. It still would remain in the downtown area. We'd be making product there as well. But then under the TTB, the federal law, they allow you to annex a second location. So we would have an exclusively industrial area outside of downtown that would be for larger measure production.
And still in Hudson.
Yes, we would intend it to be in Hudson. Space availability
It's a twofer.
Yep.
So just let me do an explanation. I provided two different drafts. One draft, which then an alternate draft, and the model that Pat is explaining is under the alternate, where it doesn't have to be ancillary to a food restaurant or a food service. Okay, so that's the difference. I want to just clarify that issue. So.
Yeah. So within the alternate draft, that's actually, as far as we're concerned, that's the perfect world scenario. The space limitations notwithstanding, because we wouldn't be expanding beyond the 3,000 square foot production facility here in downtown. We'd be looking at more of an industrial section up at the top of the hill. But then, and limits on food service, we do not want to be a restaurant. We don't want to compete with restaurants. We don't want to be one. So that's fine within our business model. Looking at the first one here, the initial draft, the one that's not labeled alternate, we would be looking at being a type B distillery. Type A distillery would be what we were looking at. Within the central business district under this model, it is labeled as a conditional use permit. We would like that to change to the NP size so that we don't have to have public hearings, just so that it falls within the existing zoning.
You're not likely to get that.
Okay.
I'm just telling you, I think any of our reviews is going to require a conditional use permit in the downtown areas. So when we're looking at how these facilities, at least this is my recommendation.
Okay.
So when we review these types of facilities, we're making sure that we can place conditions upon these facilities so they can fit within the downtown context of the downtown area. I would argue against just allowing these to be permitted uses in the downtown area.
Okay. My only point was that we would fall underneath all of the requirements written within the law. So I was intending to meet all of your.
No, I appreciate that, but no, I would, you know, I've been very careful about making this recommendation of a conditional use permit.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, we're glad to go through it. It's just, you know, cutting out one more administrative step is always good.
Kevin?
For us, it's a step that we feel is necessary.
Absolutely.
Kevin?
So let's use your business model as an example here, so I understand this. I liked the first draft instead of the alternative, personally.
Which one?
The first
One
one
is-
is,
First one, not the
Doesn't say
not the,
alternative.
Does
Yeah.
not say
the one
Yeah,
that
the
does
one
not say
with,
alternate.
yes, I like that one
With
too,
the
yeah.
type A and type
But
B.
when Pat was saying, I love what's written here, I was questioning it, because the way you describe it would seem like you are a type B distillery, because
Right.
you have no food related to it. And if you were a type B distillery.
Oh, I'm sorry, yep.
That is not permitted in the central business district, according to this first draft.
Okay, so you would not want us to be allowed in the downtown business district because we're not serving food?
Yes.
According
Well,
to
that-
this
that's
first
according to this
draft.
first draft.
right?
So we'd have,
That's still for discussion.
yeah, so
Yeah,
that we could,
this is a draft. If you-
And
Okay.
I think the reason why, you know, communities look at this is because the central business district is more of a service, retail, restaurant area, not so much a production area. And production can be a part of a restaurant, a brew pub, a tasting room. But if you don't have that, then it becomes more production. And the question is then, do you want that in the central business district?
will you be able to purchase spirits from there?
Yes.
So it's a retail slash.
There will be
distillery.
retail as well. Now, if I may just address one point, is that I think a big part of the draw that may be overlooked, just so far in the discussion, I don't think I've had a chance, I've mentioned it so far, but a big part of the draw for this type of business is that people get to come in and see the production themselves. And that's actually part of it, is that we've actually got the grain mashing on site, we'll have the still on site, and so part of the draw. And in fact, if you go to any of the other distilleries, 45th Parallel over in New Richmond is a good example. There are 9 others in the state of Wisconsin. And the draw of a facility like this is that people are able to come in, they're able to see the corn and the wheat and the rye that all of these different spirits are being made from. Get to see the process from making the mash to putting it into the still and actually creating the booze from it. So I think that that's a significant part of it, and that's actually, the tours are actually going to be a part of it. It'll be a production facility, but it'll be a production insofar as like going to a winery and being able to take a tour of a vintner and actually taking a look through the facilities, walking through the grape fields and actually walking through their facilities. So it is a production facility, yes, but it's not exclusively for production. It will also be designed for tours and for guest interaction throughout the entirety of the facility, whether it's from shipping and receiving up through creation.
Let Kevin finish, because you had another one?
So, I know it's hard to estimate, a business model, but what percent of of your product do you think you'll sell on-site versus off-site?
Well, off-site will be a significant percentage, just because if we make, say, for example, 1,000 gallons of rum, so that's just rum using local ingredients, and we're creating this. What we would do with that is we would sell, out of that 1,000 gallons, we may sell 10 gallons on site or 20 gallons on site, and the rest of it would be designed to go on pallets and shipped off for various distributors. Now, it would also be available at all the other bars and restaurants on the street under that same brand name within that bottle. So the facility and the tour is to see what it's a new concept called grain to glass. So we're purchasing grain, we're making everything on site and putting it into what is essentially a drinkable spirit at the end. So people seeing that process from beginning to end within a small facility and seeing how bootstrappers like ourselves are able to purchase our goods and create a final product from it, that's actually the attraction. So most of our product is intended for off-site sale through local distributors, but at the end of the day, the tasting room and it's almost two separate businesses, but they're two separate businesses that are complementary, because the tasting experience is a matter of seeing it made, tasting what the final product is, and then moving on about your day throughout downtown.
Yeah. So I think what we have to do is ask ourselves, do we want a production facility in the downtown district, or do we want a facility that's more related to retail, restaurant type activity? I mean, that's the question we have to ask. And I was gonna ask Denny, do other cities have in an ordinance, do they have anything like a percentage of what you produce has to be sold on site or
Not that
anything
I've
like that?
seen, no.
Okay. all right.
Okay, Pat was next.
Mine was, when looking through the two of them, was a preference for the one without the attachment to food. And from talking to a couple of different tavern owners in town, it sounded like they liked that one more because it's not a way of circumventing having a liquor license. If you paid a lot of money for the liquor license for your bar and your restaurant. Now, by just coming in and putting in a distillery and having a little food attachment to it, are we opening up now another tavern restaurant without having to go through the normal channels of having a liquor license?
Well, if a liquor license is required, then they're gonna have to get it. However, with the breweries, the brewery licenses are a little more clear because in Wisconsin, the state now issues the brewer licenses. And under a brewer's license, you can have a retail facility off-site. So let's say in the existing brewery that exists, they could come downtown and have a retail site and not come to the city and get a liquor license, is my understanding of state law.
Okay. But my point was
They
gonna
don't
be,
have food, though. They could sell without food, correct?
I see what this type of experience they're trying to create is much marketing for their product as anything, but it's very experiential in that it's going to, I would think, tie in very well to the other businesses that are already seasons across the street with Barker's, with the other restaurants and everything else. I think it would be very additive. You're going to have a restaurant in town.
Yeah.
What do you think? You know, I mean, I think it's additive to the experience that we're trying to create downtown. And you know, the bulk of your product is going to be shipped out of your other facility, is it not?
Okay.
Well, and that's really, just to address the point, is I've talked to a number of the restaurants downtown, whether they're staff or owners. I've talked to the cigar shop and a few of the other places there, and everybody I've talked to has been very excited about this addition to the city. And I think the reason is that they realize that it's a destination for people who are already walking up and down the street, that are antiquing and doing other things that are available in town. It's not taking away from their lunch service. It's not taking away from their dinner service. It's not taking away from any beverages they might be serving. It's a chance for people to walk in, to have a tour, maybe buy a bottle from us, maybe have a drink with us, but move about their day. It's not intended to be a destination. Insofar as somewhere where you're going to camp out all night with your friends and have a big evening. It's meant to be in addition to an evening already spent within Hudson. So I think that's why it's so complimentary to the town. And after talking to Michael, who owns Pudge's, and a number of other people in town, I've yet to hear anybody that's voiced any concern about the location at all. Everybody seems to be very positive about it.
Mary?
So, just after what we learned from the last meeting and tonight, there was, the reason why I like this concept, Kevin, is because the grains that they're going to use, the beets they're going to use, are all coming from local farmers. So we're keeping it very local. If other restaurants are willing to put in like an appetizer sampler or something in there, those restaurants are essentially advertising their business through an appetizer, which helps those restaurants hopefully. And so I think incorporating, I think incorporating downtown businesses like that and using the farmers, I think it will bring in tourism too. And
So you're talking, Mary, about the alternative. You
Yeah.
like the alternative one, okay?
I like the fact, no, I like the type B.
Right, but
Yeah.
in the alternative one, there's no requirement for food, is that the way? I'm
Yeah,
reading
I
it?
don't want requirement for food, but if he's gonna, have the, if food is willing to come in, if he's
Oh,
willing to have
sure.
food come in, then from other restaurants, I think that's, I mean, if I owned a restaurant down the road, I'd put an appetizer sampler in there and,
Well, I
you
just
know.
want to clarify, that food service would not be would be the ancillary use. The
Right.
main use would still be the production
Right.
element, and that's
That's
where
type
we're,
A.
you know.
Right.
But still, we'll
Type A
fall
is the
well under the
same.
3,000 square foot production facility.
No, I understand but what we need to do is try to agree here which direction we want to go, and then, so when we send it to city attorney,
Right.
her and I can write it in the direction that you want it.
Well, if it's what you're saying, wouldn't that be type A then, a type A distillery?
In my opinion, no, because the brewery would still be, or the distillery would still be the primary use,
Right, that's what I thought.
you know, so it's not a type A.
Okay, well,
Type B.
I got confused when you said ancillary, that's why I was,
Yeah,
yeah, I never say it right.
ancillary use.
Ancillary use.
So we're talking about the alternative,
Yeah, no,
no?
I was not. I was talking about type B from the original.
Well, then you have a food requirement.
Well, I mean, you could rewrite that somehow,
Yeah.
you just
not include-
soften it as being an ancillary use, that,
Right,
Correct.
but may not include with a restaurant or other retail food services. I'm reading as if food is not necessary in type B.
type B as it's written is not allowed in the
Right.
central business district.
Right.
But the distillery is not allowed, correct?
But that's also something that we
Type
can
B
look
is
at, though. We can also look at putting a conditional use permit in, for type B, right?
No, the way it's written,
No.
under type B, they're not allowed.
Right?
Yeah, I didn't know.
Type A, the restaurant is
Industrial
required.
use.
Yep.
Yes,
So in type B, where there is no restaurant, then no permit would be allowed.
so then we'd have,
Yeah.
In the central business district.
so,
So I'm not sure that and I'm not voicing concern, I'm just posing questions so we make sure that we understand this before we
right,
pass an ordinance. I mean, the question that we have to ask ourselves, I mean, I love the concept of it. I think the concept of a tasting room and the distillery fits in with, what's happening in downtown Hudson. It's a good complement. The one thing that we have to ask ourselves is how much production is gonna accompany this building. And if there's one, you've got restaurants, you've got retailers that, product is coming in once a week. You do have truck traffic in the downtown area, there's no doubt about that. But if you're doing a production, grains coming in, products going out, bottles are coming, there's in production, there's a lot more coming and going of things. And I just want to make sure that we don't have facilities all over the downtown area that create problems with trucks. I mean, we all know that.
Actually,
Well, what I understood-
They don't have off-site
From what I-
parking lots for a truck to go in and
Right.
park, and they're gonna be on the
if I may
streets.
interject one point.
Yep.
At full capacity, if we are running 24 hours a day within the production facility, that allows us to create essentially one pallet a day of end product, meaning that in totality, the most we could be producing would be 7 pallets a week, which is less than one flatbed truck full. So I don't think that this would necessarily increase the amount of downtown flatbed traffic or truck traffic. I don't think it would be a noticeable difference, I guess would be what I say.
So the
We're not going to be a large-scale facility.
So the question would be, does the square footage requirement that you have in here, does that automatically limit the amount of production? Or should the amount of production be spelled out?
I think the square footage limits the amount of production, because there's only so much you can hold on site, and he clarified for us last time that nothing, everything will be stored inside, there's not gonna be barrels sitting outside and, you know, so.
Unless you want them for decoration.
No, so he's not only gonna have distillery production and tasting room, he's also gonna have to have his storage in there for this, so if it doesn't fit, it's not going in.
Yeah,
You know?
and we'll have bonded warehouses off-site at the top of the hill, you know, for any storage that we can't fit on site. So the amount of traffic I mean, this is, you know, two guys throwing 4 barrels in the back of a pickup truck and driving to the top of a hill. I mean, that's what we're talking about, just in terms of that level of capacity. The space limitation here is very, very much a limitation on the amount that we can produce.
Which is not a bad thing.
You feel that too?
Well, you know, going back to our very first discussion on this was, how do we enforce the number of gallons that they're making? You know, where it's kegs or where it's barrels or where it's, how does the city enforce that?
The TTB is
Well, I mean,
very, very strict on
I
that.
realize somebody else does, but how do we?
And I think that's by
And then
square
that's where,
footage.
and we try to just restrict it by the amount of square footage, which also makes it a smaller production area, which hopefully would fit better in the context of the downtown
Town
area.
area, yeah.
Within the scale of the conditional use permit, if you wanted to put in some sort of a permit that I had to CC you on any communication with regards to the number of gallons produced, I'd be glad to do that. I'm already sending out the paperwork.
I mean, basically, a lot of times, when you have other licenses, that would be a condition we would require. We get copies of the permits you would receive at your state or federal levels, and so.
Absolutely. We'll be glad to keep all that on file with the city.
Frank?
45th Parallel has been mentioned. Aren't they the one in New Richmond?
Yes.
Are they in a downtown area there? Are
No,
they
New Richmond actually gave them the land that they're built on to spur industrial development.
Okay, so they're not in the downtown.
When they were created, and just to address the point, they're not in the downtown, but it's because when they were created, it was 7 or 8 years ago, the state of Wisconsin did not allow for a tasting room on site. So they actually built their tasting room within their existing facility, and it has a grand total of 4 stools. So they didn't.
Do you have an example of an operation elsewhere, somewhere in the area that is doing what you're...
That's why I'm building it here. This area is very underserved. There's 45th Parallel, and there's nobody else until you get out to Madison.
So in Madison, then, there's a distillery in Madison?
There are 5 in Madison, 2 in Milwaukee, 1 in Green Bay, and 1 down by up in Appleton.
Are they operating similar to what you would anticipate here?
Yeah, probably the closest one to what we'd be looking at would either be Great Lakes Distillery, which is out on the water out in Milwaukee, and then there's a second one that's very similar, which is called Old Sugar Distillery, which is in downtown Madison.
Are you suggesting a field trip, Frank?
I tell you what, go out there.
You pay for it.
Yeah.
They take
No.
Great Lakes Distillery has been around almost the same amount of time as 45th Parallel, and they are an excellent example of what growth can lead to.
My point being, what you're talking about here is relatively new, and it's new in this area. I was just trying to find an example somewhere in a city where that's in a more downtown area like we're talking about here, where one operates.
Maybe
Yeah.
Green Bay then?
Well, I think we are kind of cutting as far as new regulations and so forth. And that's the reason I haven't pushed for this just to go through quickly. I think we gotta be very careful how we structure this to make sure that.
And I think one other point that just because there's only a distillery being represented here, this also addresses wineries and breweries, and everybody knows how there's a brewery explosion going on right now, and a lot of them are able to build some very nice facilities, and they want to brew on site and they want to serve within their own tasting room, and I think that would be a great option within the city, just because it's all over. I don't know if you've been in Northeast Minneapolis any time in the last couple of years, but you can't throw a rock without hitting 3 of them.
So if we're looking at the alternate, instead of, I guess I was thinking when you were talking alternate, we were talking not the type A or B when we were talking about that. Under the alternate, what he wants to do is allowable with a conditional use permit, but it seems that maybe it should be a little, the definition might have to, does anyone think it should be tightened a little more, the definition, or does it seem a little too open-ended as far as how you read it? Because,
You know, I read it and I thought it was well put together.
well, I think it's well put together. I mean, just a definition of like, you know, may include retail sales in the on-site taste room. Do we want to, because to me, the way I read it is that just, so if it may include it, that means we're allowing something that could just be production.
Correct.
Where if we're concerned about just being production, we might want to make it so it would have to have a tasting room at minimum with production,
But
you know?
Well, I think the chances of you seeing a production only, they're gonna tie tasting rooms so they get the tourism
I
aspect
would
of
hope
these.
so too, yeah.
And,
don't-
and
I
I can
don't-
tell you that if this was gonna be production only, there's no way I'd move downtown. You know what the cost per
No,
square
I
foot
know,
is down
I know
here?
you wouldn't, I know you wouldn't, I'm just I understand that you already have your concept and it's ready to go, but I'm talking about just for future possibilities, which I understand, and I would hope that future plan commission members or what have you would think twice about just having a distillery downtown and simply just being a distillery. However, I didn't know if we wanted to tighten it up or not. I mean, I'm fine the way it is as well. I just wanted to bring that to our attention just in case someone felt we needed to tighten up the wording slightly.
With that said, the reason I was focusing on the food aspect earlier is, I guess I just look at, you know, this is an entertainment function that you're trying to create, okay?
Absolutely.
And so entertainment is tasting of your product, and then it might be eating something. Now, I mean, as you said, you don't wanna compete with the local guys, but number two, it's a profit center, if you had it internal. All the tasting rooms, the other places are doing just exactly that, where you're doing the opposite of that. To me, that confuses me to some degree, only because it just seems you're foregoing quite an opportunity where you have half of the equation, but you're letting the other half go, and
Well, I think,
Well, I'll ask him. You don't want to be in the food business, do you?
no, you
I was
already
in the
said
food
that.
business for 10 years. I'm done with it.
I think in some cases,
That
though, they,
clarifies that, but I
Yep.
mean, that's why I've been pursuing that angle.
they provide food to be consumed with their beverages,
Yeah,
distilled
so-
beverages, and they're not selling it, it's like putting peanuts out for.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. And it could be peanuts, it could be slices of pizza from the brick oven place, it could be, you know, anything from any of the local restaurants. And
I get
the
it.
reason is it's build versus buy. So if I were to have a kitchen, I mean, just to address your concern about the profit center, is if I were to build out a kitchen, say the kitchen costs me $40,000 to build, and then I have to staff it with a trained cook who I got to pay $12 an hour. If I can spend $50 on a plate of Doritos from down the street, that's a lot better deal for me, because then I don't have to worry about cleanup, I don't have to worry about training or any of those other things. So the profit margin may have potential to grow, but I'm not interested in waiting around to see for that to happen.
And here's the, what I have a concern about having the food aspect in it is we're creating another establishment with no liquor license required. That's,
That's Pat's point,
Yeah.
yeah. No,
and so that's why I kind of like the alternative
Mhm.
better than the first draft or whatever, draft A. Okay,
Where we talk about the square footages here, Denny,
which one are you on, Kevin?
well, they're both the same. I think.
Okay,
3,000 square feet for production area and then 4,000 square feet tasting room area. Is
That can
a
be
total of
all,
7,000 or is that an
no, it'd be a
additional
total of
1,000?
7,000, so I mean, that 4,000 might be high.
Yeah.
I mean, that's 4,000, you're talking, 60 by 70,
That's pretty big, yeah.
so I mean, that could be reduced.
That's Munich.
I guess I'm just,
Yeah, it depends on what you're trying to accomplish.
I'm just being devil's advocate
Yep.
here again. You know, production versus retail or whatever we want to say for the downtown area. If you've got a total of 7,000, you know, production's going well, you know, you could sneak that 3,000 could become 4,000 and 5,000 rather
Well, they're gonna be
easily
subject to a
afterwards.
conditional use permit. Basically, what we'd be asking for is a floor plan showing designating those areas, so we'd have some kind of way of going back and enforcing that.
And those are reevaluated
You can go for a year, 2 years, 3 years?
You know, typically.
And you would all be welcome to come down and have a drink.
But I see your point.
Well, I'm just asking the question.
And I put the 4,000 in one of our original discussions. You know, we had the discussion with Negritz on the winery, and they thought 4,000 from a hospitality standpoint in conjunction with a winery be about what they thought would be
Okay.
necessary to accomplish that, so.
So we're trying to look at the brewery, the distillery, and the winery. Maybe the distillery doesn't need that much, but maybe the winery does, or the brewery.
Breweries and wineries need a larger production facility,
Yep.
just because they go through much more grain and grapes than we will. They need to have more storage on site. So, and they've got big, huge vats that they'll need to use.
So what do you find to be an ample, size then?
Honestly, for the downtown business district, based on just walking up and down Second there, I would say that the size requirements within here are reasonable. A lot of it just being that you'd have to tear down some pretty big buildings in order to make anything bigger than this, and I don't think you guys would allow that anyway. So I think that allows enough oversight. I think the 3,000 and 4,000 requirement, just in terms with the amount of space that it takes for the equipment and the amount of space that's required for shipping and receiving, then I think that this puts it within a reasonable size. I think anything larger than that, and you'd be skirting on the outside of what would be reasonable.
And what's the total square footage you're looking at?
That I'm looking at, 4,000, 4,500. So, but there'll be a second floor, so another maybe 5,000 total with 2 floors, just for office space.
Okay. Anybody have any other questions, thoughts, comments?
Yeah, so how does this affect parking for downtown?
It'd be based on their tasting room, how many seats they have, and so they had 100 seats, it required 33 off-street parking stalls, but right now, we got the exemption on 6,000 square feet,
Right,
so.
see, this exemption thing is killing me.
Okay. Well,
All right.
we can talk
Focus
about
on
that.
Yeah, yeah, I was just question I was wondering.
Yep, I
That's
think it's a
how
fair
it'd be
question.
And
We
the
have to do it
building
just
is
like a
actually
restaurant.
going through the architect, so that's actually the building owner. He was, I guess the issue was pushed at the last meeting, but the architect is actually putting together different plans that would actually accommodate for that.
Okay.
So I'd be the lessee, but he'd be responsible for the building as the owner.
But in regards to Mayor Burchell's comment on liquor license, that'd be one of the questions for Kathy to
Yep.
address when we finally submit this to her for review, so,
So,
if we do.
Yep.
I'm comfortable submitting this to Kathy for review, just because we've been reviewing it, it's like the 3rd meeting now that we've.
Well, I want to make sure we
Yeah.
talk out the
No,
issues.
but, no, I'm saying I feel like we've talked, I mean, and Kevin and our mayor wasn't here last time, so I think it's good that, you
Is
know.
there anybody else that wants to speak to this?
Is there anyone else here that wants
No.
to?
Wants to speak to this? Or are we okay in the timing of our comments?
Sure.
Yep. I have a partner here, but he doesn't really want to talk.
I'll make a motion to send the alternate draft to Catherine for review.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Comments and other discussion, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank
Good
you all
job,
for your time.
Thank you.
We still have a little confusion though, I think, just in a couple areas. I sense it. I don't know if you guys.
Well, I
are
mean,
comfortable on it.
if you would identify those, so Kathy and I can try to clarify them for you, that's.
I think we're okay.
I mean, it's gonna come back to you, and then you would make a recommendation to the council. Council would schedule a public hearing, and then, so I mean, council could potentially change based on comments made at a public hearing, so.
And depending how Catherine writes it, that might clarify.
Yeah.
So,
All right? All right. Next item on the agenda is proposed facade improvements for the sports club at 601 Second Street. Tom or Lars? Lars.
Yep.
Lars Glockstein.
Yes, I'm the architect for the project. What I gave you was a kind of an overview of what we're proposing. Do you want me to, I'll try to explain all the elements on this. On the upper left-hand corner is existing building. What we're proposing is a new mansard, resheet the existing yellow board and batten that's on there. Basically punching some new openings. One of the comments that I need to address is the rail. Right now we're showing a log rail system. It's not going to be quite like that. We're going to have a round rail on top, and then what we're going to do is galvanized piping is what we're looking at, probably 1.25 inch spindles instead of those logs. So we're going to clean that up a little bit. The patio doors that I've indicated, they're going to be clad in a bronze color. The two front openings are going to be glass doors, overhead doors. They've got a small mullion, all glass, and they'll actually roll up into the ceiling right now. It's going to be kind of a cool effect when it comes off. The stone is going to be what I call lick and stick. That's going to be applied on the base. Pretty much one of the things that's probably a concern is the log siding. It's actually a 2x8 that's shaped, so it's not a true log. It's got a profile that's a lot narrower. It's going to be a cedar, all natural stains, and as you notice, the interior, he's going to try to remove the carpet on the walls and open it up a little bit, and make it look a little bit more presentable.
I have a question for you.
Sure.
On your two front, or your replacement windows, doors, whatever the term is, you said these are gonna open. Is it conceivable that while the place, it's 11 o'clock at night and they're hooting and hollering, could they open those doors right up to have the whole inside of the bar exposed to the outside?
One of the things I think it happened, Ally, is that there's a restriction on opening them up, isn't there?
Yes.
Well,
Well,
there's a
I'm just
decimal.
asking, could that happen? I wanna know, I'm curious.
I think the answer is probably yes, it
Yes.
could be open.
Yes.
Okay?
But they could be made to close if it was too loud and noisy because of their decibel restriction, correct?
We have a decibel restriction.
How do
Just
you-
for Ellie's
how do you
though, I
measure
don't
it?
Oh,
think
it's
so.
for everyone.
It's been measured before, I think, in the other places.
I just wondered.
I think it's been addressed.
Especially for the
But
police.
you're correct.
Yeah.
Well, no, it's a neat feature, please, don't get me wrong, it
I
really,
like
it really
going in.
is.
I'm trying to get it in the ceiling so it completely disappears.
But you know, then people are throwing bottles out in the street, I mean, all kinds of, I mean, you just think the worst.
Where are you
No, come
Oh,
on.
come on, you remember.
Are you talking about
What
Pudge's
kind of
fence
childhood
too?
did you lead? My gosh, I mean,
I don't think that's quite the.
3,000 Minnesota kids over
They could
here
chuck
on
the bottles right
Saturday
over
night.
Pudge's fence too, then if you go that route, I think then it'll be okay.
I'll stop, I'm
No,
stopping.
you're.
Are you reliving your childhood?
We have a question. Frank?
You have, and maybe you're getting to that, and I'm just jumping way ahead of you. You also have opening doors on the back.
That's correct. There's going to be a larger overhead door on the back of it, also the same profile as the front, one larger one. If you remember how it looks, there's a step down in the back dining area, and we're going to raise that up, but I have to raise the floor up and the deck in the back in order to accommodate it so it's a clean exit out, because that is the primary exit out of the building.
I have to ask this question now, because the word's been said. What a great place for a deck on the back. How come there isn't a deck? Just curiosity question.
One of the elements,
Or
we
is that-
take one step at a time.
Thank
And
you.
this is probably more important because we're adding a color to the white stucco that's back there. We're trying to blend it down a little bit, enhance the front. It's got a rustic theme, but we want to keep it as clean as possible.
Okay.
But you're correct on, it would be nice, but that's another battle. We're not going to battle.
Is there any potential for reflective off this metal mansard?
That's why I brought the sample. Is what happens with the metal, it's going to look like this color right now. And with the pollutants and dust in the air that's downtown, it will discolor to this type. I suspect in about a year. The salesman will say a week, but it takes a little bit longer than that.
Will these patio doors open up similar to the front doors on the side, out of curiosity?
These are going to be 4-section patio doors. They're by like Marvin, but they're off the floor about a foot because they got radiant heat around the perimeter. So I even talked to the state because I was classifying it as a window, not a door.
Okay.
And so, but I still have to have the guardrail system because anything under 30 inches from the floor has to have protective rail or screens.
Well, my question-
With this type of business, we're gonna definitely put rails on.
Questions? Comments?
Well, yeah, I mean, you know, there's a couple of non-traditional elements here. One is the use of garage doors, opening. I mean, that's not your traditional window type in what might be considered. You know, this location is not in the designated historic area. It is in the downtown. So, you know, this building actually at one time was a 3-story building. There was a fire that reduced it, you know. I mean, we got pictures. I got pictured 1884 of this building as it existed. It was a 3-story building at one time. Apparently there's a fire that took the top 2 stories. So this building basically has existed kind of in a more non-traditional basis for a number of years. And I guess what, you know, we're trying to be careful of is, you know, when you add new architectural features, how do they complement the downtown area? You know, are they so different so that they don't complement? And I guess that's that's a subjective consideration. Well, we're not in the historic area where, you know, if it was, we might be looking at, you know, maybe some little more traditional type of features. But
To me, my first glance at it, I guess the second glance at it, it's a huge improvement
Yeah.
on for what we have right now.
And the owner's here, Tom, he's dedicated, he's devoted to this building.
Yep.
You know, he's gonna spend some money on this thing, there's no question about it. So he wants to be here for a long time.
I agree. I think it's a really neat improvement to downtown. I think a lot of the buildings that are getting redone are kind of, you know, modernizing a little more than, you know, by changing the stucco out and blending it in more. I think it's going to look great.
well, stucco's only being repainted, correct?
Yeah, by painting it out, the
Might
coloring.
be some repair if necessary.
Yeah.
But
Well,
When
you
we
gotta
punch the
color it.
openings, you know, we don't know what's in the wall.
Good luck coloring the stucco, but
1860, what year was it?
Well, I don't know. I don't know what year it's built, but it is shown in an 1884 photograph. So
Yes.
it's going to be interesting to color, but that'll be great.
Internally, it's really strange because I get lost up above the ceiling because like Danny said, it burnt off on the top and then they capped it. So then there's multiple levels in there, and there's actually, the second floor has got the 1 1/8 maple still on the floor, and there's a really old sawhorse up there. But you gotta bend down, and it's just a strange spaces up there. So and I know Tom's gonna continually improve it internally too.
Well, my point is that I think it will blend nice with downtown. I really like the updated version. It's really cool.
Well, it's soft enough. I don't think it stands out, not like the left of center when it was turned magenta.
As long as the food stays as good as it was, that'll be good.
Like the windows along that wall.
I do too.
It,
Kevin?
is the garage doors, is that all windows?
Yeah,
Garage
it's-
door?
Yep.
It is,
Yeah,
okay.
it's got the small, it's like, they're 2-inch mullions, and they're all glass. They're gonna be low E, they're gonna have a slight tint to them.
Okay.
They're not gonna be the complete, you know, it's gonna have it's low E, it's more of a color.
Yep.
I need a motion to approve.
recommend approval of
Recommend.
the council, yeah.
Yeah.
So moved.
Is there a second? Any other questions, comments? Tom, do you have anything you'd like to say?
Thank you.
Well, we haven't voted yet.
Who is the second on the motion?
Fred. Yes, Tom?
I don't have any other comments other than, you know, we appreciate your positive feedback on it. And we're going to continue. Like what you're seeing now is just the outside, and Lars he's drafted a lot of other stuff on the inside as well. The bar, we're changing the bar footprint, and there's a wall that separates the old, what we call it the lion's room, We're gonna remove that and open that up. And we really like to give it a open, one-room feel is what we're going after, so. And we're struggling, like, you know, we talk about the structure. We really wanted to open the whole ceiling up, all the way up. And because of the way the fires and such they kind of made it pile down on top of itself upstairs, so it's going to be really hard to do that. So we're going to open up the ceiling in the back room, the addition area, but not in the front area. So, but anyways, the gist of it is we're trying to stay historic and true to kind of I guess a local flavor, you know, not trying to be too wild and crazy. So.
All right. Any other questions, comments before the question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Congratulations, doing a good job here. Other business for informational purposes only for upcoming agenda items.
The two tentative meeting dates will be September 5th, and because there's 5 Mondays in the month of September, the second meeting will be on September 26th.
26th, September 5 and
When
26th.
when is Labor Day?
That is the
Today's the
5th.
3rd,
Yep.
or the 2nd,
So that'll be the Thursday after Memorial.
Thursday after.
Labor Day, excuse me. Hey, anything else? If not, is there a motion to adjourn?
Yes.
Is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thank you very much.